Alright, good morning. We are going to begin our keychain assignment today, and we have all of the information from yesterday that we need dealing with the sizes of pretty much everything on this keychain. The only thing we missed was this radius here and the diameter of this circle. So what I'm going to do is give that away right now. That way we can get started with everything we possibly could need for this assignment. So this circle right here, whoops, let me change this to black. Right, that hole, this is the universal symbol for diameter, is 0.25 of an inch, so a quarter inch. And kind of hard to see, but this radius R is also 0.25. 0.25 inches, right? So that's the radius on the outside of that keychain. Right, so two dimensions that we missed that you will need in order to complete your assignment. So let's get started in OnShape. First thing we're going to do is create a new document. We're going to name it our last name and then keychain. And the first thing we're going to do is draw the outside and kind of work the outside in of this shape. So I'll create a new sketch on the front plane. Take my rectangle, and we're going to draw a rectangle first, and then we'll come back and round everything after with the fillet tool. Right, so our dimensions based on that drawing was 3 inches by 1. Right, and actually the next thing that we can do is add the hole in it, because we're going to extrude this to our overall shape. And then we'll be able to extrude that rounded rectangle inside the overall keychain shape. So I'm going to take my center point circle and we're going to create that first. So I'm just going to click somewhere in the top left corner of this rectangle. It doesn't matter. I'm going to make that 0.25. And I'll use my dimension tool to put that in the right place. And based off that drawing, so from the center point to this edge, it's 0.25, and from the center point to the top edge, it's also 0.25. Right, and the reason that I do that first is so that once we extrude this, so I'll hit check mark, extrude, I can extrude that circle into my shape here anyway. So I'm going to extrude this 0.25 because it's a quarter of an inch for this keychain, and hit the check mark. That gives us a nice rectangle, not quite rounded yet, but we'll get there. And now we're going to use a trick to offset exactly where to put that rounded rectangle. So what I'm going to do is start a brand new sketch. This time I'm going to click on the front face of this shape so that I start the sketch on it. And then I'm going to come up here to the offset tool. It's also the O. And if I click on the offset tool in the top part of my rectangle, you'll see it wants to draw a line that's 0.25 of an inch below it. Instead of 0.25, I'm going to make that 0.125. So I'm going to hit the check, or I'm going to hit enter, sorry. Type 0.125, and it'll draw that line right below it. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Move this back in, enter, 0.125. So all I did there was drag it from one side, so it'll do it again here. I'm just going to grab this arrow and pull it upwards instead of down. 0.125, enter. And then for this last one, I'm going to offset it 0.5, and the reason for that is is if we left it at 0.125 or anything like that, right, you would have your rectangle inside where your circle area is, or your circle area would be inside that rectangle rather. So we're going to make this 0.5, and then that pushes it out and away. Right, so I'll use M, my trim tool here, and I'm going to trim all the extra pieces so that I have just the rectangle left over. So I'm just going to click on each of these. Whoops, click too many times. Control Z, undo. Trim, click, click, and you're left with a nice rectangle. So we didn't fillet the sketch for the actual rectangle, the outer shape, but we are going to fillet this sketch before we extrude it inwards because it makes it much easier to do it now for this sketch. We don't have to worry about offsetting or anything like that. So the reason that we didn't fillet the sketch right off the bat is it doesn't let you offset your full lines all the way across. So by waiting, we're able to use that offset feature much quicker. So we're going to come up here to sketch fillet. That's Shift F on the keyboard, and we're just going to click our four corners and leave that radius to 0.25 and hit the check. Right, so it gives us that nice rounded rectangle area, and what we can do is click on it, and instead of the depth being 1 inch, we're going to make that depth 0.125 and remove. So you have to click that remove portion in order to send it back the other way. And that'll leave you with a nice cut in rounded rectangle. So the last thing we do before we add the text is we can finally, right here, fillet. We could fillet those edges. The only thing you have to do is change the radius from 0.2 to 0.25. And then you can click on your four corners. You're probably going to have to rotate this one in order to get it. And check. Alright, so that leaves us a nice keychain to work with. We can add some text to it. In order to add some text to it, you can click on a new sketch. You're going to click on the inside face. You must click on the inside face. And right here is the text tool. The text tool is very strange in the way that it works, and it's very hard to line up. So it's going to take a good bit of practice, but you can use the text tool and draw a rectangle on your shape here. Try not to connect it to any point. So you see that yellow point, you see that point. Try not to even that one with the dotted lines, because if you leave it connected to that, it won't let you move your text around. So if I was going to add my last name, you can see I made that box pretty big, so I'll have to shrink it down a bit. To shrink it, you just click on whichever circle decides it wants to let you shrink it. I guess it's not going to let me. You can also use the dimension tool to shrink it down. So if we said we only want this to be like 2.5 inches, still too big. 2. That'll at least get us inside that box there. So I'll just leave it like that, 2 inches. Play around with it, make it look as best as you can. If you need to go back and edit that text, you can click it, right click, edit text, and it'll let you change, you can make it bold, all kinds of stuff. So totally up to you on what you want to do. You can change the font. But basically, you're going to hit the check mark, and we can extrude each letter, and by default it's way too far out, not 1. We're going to extrude that 0.125 and hit enter. And it'll be nice and flush with the front face. Right, so pretty cool. When you're finished, you're going to share it, so hit share, go to Teams, and find your team. Click it, change Can Edit to Can View. We might need to change that later, but keep it on that for right now. Click this export button. That way I'll be able to export it because I'm going to need the files themselves to actually 3D print. So good luck. Take your time. If you need my help, please let me know.